morning and go run a half marathon at 7 a.m. And of course, my reaction was the obvious one, which is hell to the no. Hell to the no, no, hell to the no, no, no. I'm not getting up at no 4:30 in the morning to go run a race. But I did say that because I love you and I need you to be safe, I will get up at 4:30 in the morning to drive you to the race. So that's what I did. I drove her. My goal was to be a good husband, and I said, "Boyce, you cannot let your wife go drive, what a good 50 miles from home and just be surrounded by random white people." So I said, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go with you. And so here's what I did. So I dropped my wife off and I was so sleepy. I was so tired. I dropped her off and I saw this hotel right across the street from the race. And I said, you know what, babe, while you're running, I'm going to be sleeping and I'm going to be thinking about you and wishing you the absolute best, but I'm going to be warm in the bed and I'll be at that hotel right there. See the hotel right there? You can walk right to that hotel and come and hang out with me after you get done because I'm going to take me a nap and then get up and talk to the students today because we got financial consciousness training. So that's the real life of Boyce Watkins. That's really what was going on today in my life. That's absolutely the truth in terms of what happened today. Now, the second thing that was on my mind, as I was dropping my wife off, was I started to I did some research on what's going on with debt and what's going on in America when it comes to debt. Also, what's going on with Black people as it pertains to debt, and also what's going on with both educated and uneducated Black folks when it comes to debt. One group is not better than the other. It's just you deal with different dynamics in the economy, and it made me think about the corporate plantation, and it made me think about corporate slavery and how so many of our people that do everything right. You do everything you're supposed to do. You go to school. You work hard. You get good grades to get a good job. And it just doesn't quite work out the way you want it to. And in fact, actually, but I'm still a big advocate of education. In fact, my wife's brother, or who happens to be my brother-in-law, that's what your wife's brother is called. He actually works with this company called C2, and C2 is where they actually train kids to get ready for college, and they work with the kids to help them to get high ACT scores and high SAT scores. Our daughter's going through it right now. What's interesting about that is he was mentioning to me an honest truth. He said we have a really hard time getting Black parents to bring their children to come in. He said we drop the price, we offer free stuff, we do everything we can. And he said it's just really hard. He said, now Indian parents, he said their kids are in their full throttle. He said Asian parents, they'll spend their last nickel. And in fact, I went into the C2 office and I saw on the wall they had pictures of happy little students with braces and stuff that like had completed the C2 programs and stuff. And on one wall, I saw a little white girl saying, thank you C2 for helping me because they helped me go to college and now I'm very successful. And then I saw another one with a little Indian boy. I don't know who he was. I don't know his name or anything, but it was him. He was basically saying C2 is what helped me to become a national merit scholar. And then there was like a little Asian kid. I think it was a girl, and she looked maybe I don't know if she was Chinese or whatever Asian ethnicity it was, but she was Asian, and she was thanking the C2. But I did not see any pictures of Black children on the wall. I did not see one Black child on the wall, and I don't know if that's because they forgot that Black kids exist, or if it's because Black kids just don't participate as much. But I was looking for the Black kid. I was looking for the Black person, and so one of the things that made me think about is it made me ask this very obvious question that I think maybe from a consciousness standpoint we might want to ask ourselves, which is this. It's very simple. Do we spend as much preparing our kids for education as we spend on things like preparing them for an imaginary career in professional sports? Yes or no? What do y'all think? Do you think we spend as much putting our kids in college prep programs as we would spend sending them to basketball camp, even though he's 5'8" and ain't never going to grow no taller for the rest of his life? And do we spend as much energy sending our children to these educational programs, even if they're low cost or free? I've seen them where they're free. I know people say we can't afford it, but I just find that really fascinating when we say we can't afford educational support when it seems like we can afford everything that we want. I see Black people driving cars that I would never buy. I see Black folks wearing clothes that I can't afford myself, not because I don't have the money, but because I can't justify throwing that much money down the toilet. I see Black folks living pretty good. It doesn't mean everybody's living good. I'm not saying everybody is balling. I'm not saying everybody's got $1 billion in the bank. That's not true. But some of us are not in the struggle, right? Some of us are actually doing okay and have extra money floating around and could really get the things that we want. We can afford to go to a nice restaurant every now and then, go to the movies and dinner. Black Panther comes out. Every person shows up for that movie as if it is a religious experience that requires mandatory attendance. They show up for the Black Panther movies the same way they show up to vote when the Democratic Party says y'all need to show up and make sure you get Joe Biden back in office, right? So we're kind of committed to certain things. Do you get what I mean? Like there's certain things we're kind of committed to. Like I saw this thing where they were making a joke about what happens. I promise you I'm gonna get back to the debt thing. I got my notes here that's gonna get me back on track. But y'all know what, in case you don't know what financial consciousness does, it's literally me giving you a stream of consciousness of what I'm observing economically so we can see the money dynamics in our lives and how it all plays together. So I saw this video that was interesting where there was a black girl who was married to a white guy, and she made a joke about what happens to white guys when they marry black girls, how they start changing how they dress and how they kind of tighten them up a little bit and give them a little more swag. Like, like they'll have them grow a beard or they'll get some kind of cool haircut or they'll start wearing like certain clothes like like a alligator belt or some patent leather shoes or whatever. And I saw the images and the imagery that they had of the way black men supposedly dress has nothing to do with me. I've never worn any of those clothes. I'm not saying that they're tacky or that they're bad, and I respect you. If you got the swag, then God bless you, because God didn't bless me with no swag. You are talking to a swagless human being. I have zero swag when it comes to how I dress, because I can easily go shop at Walmart and feel like I did everything right. So anyway, I saw these clothes, and these clothes looked expensive. Like, don't get me wrong, maybe they're not, maybe they don't cost that much, but I remember just thinking, gosh, that's so interesting that there's some of us who really will put a lot of money into every aspect of our appearance. And I'm not saying that that's bad. You probably shouldn't do what I do. I'm raggedy. Don't be like me. Don't be like me when you grow up. I ain't, if I didn't have no money, and that I didn't have like, and I wasn't like kind of internet famous or whatever, I probably would never have had a girlfriend in my life. Who knows? I have no idea. But anyway, but the thing was though, I remember looking at that and thinking, gosh, it must be really expensive in terms of time, energy, and money to really, really put that much energy into your appearance. And is this really the image of the black male? Like, is that really the image of the black male, or is that the image of a certain kind of black male? Not that that's a bad black man. I'm not making fun of guys who are in that category. I know guys. We all got that uncle. You like my Uncle John. I had an Uncle John, rest his soul, wonderful man. He was from Atlanta, and he was a big fan of the Atlanta Falcons. And he looked just like Deion Sanders. Imagine a fat Deion Sanders in the 1980s. That's what he was. He had a big Jerry curl. He had four. He didn't have one ring or two ring. He had like four rings on each hand. He had 5 or 6 chains that he would wear around his neck, and he had a couple gold teeth. And he just always was fly. Like if he went out, he'd have the hat and the shoes and and some of that stuff and it's interesting because I remember just thinking, that's so fascinating that people spend that much money and that much time on appearance. And I think that that's okay. But what that really says is it doesn't say anything wrong, by the way. I want to make that clear. I'm not hating on people that have more swag than me, which is pretty much 95% of the population. What I'm pointing out is that it seems to me that when it comes time to spend our money, we ready to spend. Do you get what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Did I say that in a way that doesn't sound like I'm just jealous of people that dress better than me? I hope I'm not sounding that way because I don't want to be hater of the year. Not on that. There's some things I do hate, but this is not one thing that I hate. And in fact, actually, I said something. I made a comment. Sometimes I surprise people because I made a Twitter comment about the this ongoing, really fascinating rap battle between Kendrick Lamar and Drake. And people somehow think that because you're 52, you don't understand hip hop. And I just literally respond by saying I was probably listening to hip hop before you were born, or definitely when you were in elementary school. And so I know the history of the beast. I'm a black man. I know all about hip hop. I've been on the Breakfast Club a bunch of times, so I keep up with the culture. So I'm going to comment on this whether you like it or not. And then one of the things that about that interesting beef was that somebody said, and I said, yeah, I think Kendrick is literally destroying Drake right now. But it's kind of like me sort of being petty because I've always thought Drake rapped like a suburban white woman to me. I didn't relate to Drake, honestly. I relate to Kendrick Lamar. But then again, that's a personal thing. But anyway, so as Drake is destroying Kendrick Lamar, or sorry, Kendrick Lamar is destroying Drake. My bad, I got that backward. Um, Somebody asked me, somebody said, so Doc, do you agree with so you're okay with the destruction of the image of a black male? Are you okay with that? Are you okay with Kendrick destroying the image of a black male in public? And I said, well, are you talking about Drake? I said, because that's not an image of a black male. I know he's a certified lover boy and he's got the all the swag that comes with being a rapper. I said, but that's not a black male image because that was an image created by a white man. That was the black male image created by white people. White people run that. White people own hip hop. Black people do not own hip hop. Black people do not control it. There's not a single black person anywhere that I know of. Have you ever? I don't know if any of y'all follow. If you follow hip hop, you'll know about this rapper named Sexy Red who literally will make you want to vomit in your mouth every time you see her. I'm sorry, I don't know how that sounds, but and then maybe I shouldn't say that, because I don't want to be I want to be encouraging and positive on a Sunday morning, but it's really really sad. Like not one of you in this room, I can bet you every nickel in my bank account that not one of you would ever watch Sexy Red in a video and say, "Gosh, I really want my daughter to be like her." That's the role model, right? And so where did that come from? That does not come from black people. That comes from the people that own hip hop. Hip hop is not black owned. Hip hop is white owned, and we are the workers. It's like hip hop is a big restaurant, and we are the employees. We are the people that are performing at the restaurant. We're the ones who are serving at the tables. We don't get to decide what food is going to get served in this restaurant, but we all eat at the restaurant because the restaurant is full of black employees. Do you understand? You see all the black employees at the restaurant, so you think, oh, that must be a black restaurant, but you're not really sitting and thinking about who's running the restaurant, who owns the damn thing, who's deciding what food is going to be served on these plates. You're not thinking about that, right? You're just literally coming in. It's like when we go see Black Panther and we really think Black Panther is a black movie. Black Panther is not a black movie. Black Panther is a white movie with black people in it. Disney, I know I'm a shareholder in Disney, unfortunately, because their stock has done poorly for the last several years. And they don't, most of their shareholders do not look like you and I. The people that make the money when a new Black Panther movie comes out are not people like us. That money does not go to Wakanda because Wakanda doesn't exist. This idea that we get attached to things because of the way they look on the outside as opposed to what they're composed of on the inside, it's really reflective of a lot of things. It's reflective of an inherent superficiality that we tend to embrace. This idea that if something looks good on the outside, it must be good on the inside. The same way a man looks at a beautiful woman and doesn't assume that this woman could be toxic, that this woman could have diseases, that this woman could be a terrible person. You just think she's amazing because she's got a great smile and a nice booty, right? So the same thing happens, I think, when it comes to our economics. If you don't have the financial consciousness to really dissect an entity and really understand what it really is and what's really going on and how the dynamics are working, it's like a person who might watch a puppet show and think that Pinocchio is a real boy. Do you understand? Or somebody who watches an actor in a movie and you think that they really are the person that they're pretending to be in the movie. Stringer Bell, who was played by Idris Elba, who played in The Wire, which was one of the greatest shows of all time. If you've ever heard Idris Elba in real life, he sounds like a British bloke. I don't want to do a bad British accent because I got British friends and I have a lot of support in London, but he sounds British. And and if all my friends in London, I know y'all love me and I love y'all. So if I did that, if you're offended by that, please just chalk it up to my silliness today. But anyway, he said that he would go places and real drug dealers would come up to him and ask him for like business advice on how to expand their drug empire. And he was like, you do understand that I'm acting, that I'm an actor. And, and they didn't know, like people really think that he was really a drug dealer. So ultimately it's interesting in terms of when you talk about business, when you talk about financial consciousness, which is why we gather every single morning. We do this every morning at 10 a.m. in case you're new. It's really a matter of just kind of looking at the world and saying, what's really going on here? What's really in front of me, as opposed to what they put in front of me, right? In fact, one of my good friends, one of my great friends, is Daryl Bell. Daryl Bell was in that show, A Different World, and Daryl what played Ron Dwayne Wayne's best friend. And Daryl is a great guy. He's super smart. We really connect on financial stuff. He's super smart in finance. His daddy was a great guy on Wall Street. I mean, literally a pioneer on Wall Street. And so anyway, he was explaining to me that everybody feels like A Different World is a black show because we all watched it, we supported it. We're the reason that Warner Brothers made billions of dollars or hundreds of millions or however much money they made from that show. But they can't bring that show back until Warner Brothers gives the green light because Warner Brothers owns the show. In fact, Warner Brothers doesn't just own the show, they have dozens, if not hundreds, of patents and trademarks on this show. So even Jasmine Guy cannot go in public and perform the accent of Whitley Gilbert without being sued by Warner Brothers because they own her accent. So she can't even go if they say, "Can you do an imitation of Whitley?" And when you say Dwayne, remember how she talked, Dwayne, I love Dwayne, right? She can't do that. She can't do Whitley Gilbert's accent because they put a trademark or a patent or a copyright, whichever one. I don't know the right one. I have to talk to. I literally have a trademark lawyer. I need to one day bring her into class or something. But she could probably tell me the difference between which one you need. But that's why I hired her name's Takora. That's why I hired her as my trademark lawyer because she knows the difference between these things. And so ultimately, a lot of the things that we think are black really aren't black. And I think it's very important to just make sure we know the difference. Okay. So circling back, when you're talking about that first issue of do we spend our money on education as quickly as we spend it on sports? I would say the answer is no. I would say that perhaps a little more balance would be called for. In fact, again, if you're sending your kids to college or the grandkids to college, get them ready. Get them ready. I remember in college being very confused. Here's the thing. Let me explain something. When I was in college, part of the reason I don't have no swag is because when I was a kid, I didn't have time for bullshit. I just didn't. I was independent from the time I was like 12 or 13. I got my first job when I was 11. And then my mama made me pay rent when I was 14. That's just terrible. That's so abusive. But the good side of it is it made me into a man very quickly. And so I would literally go out and do grown man stuff. I'd be like, I'm leaving. I'd leave at 16. At 16 years old, I would just leave the house and come back whenever. And I don't know why my parents did. They were just so terrible, right? But anyway, I love them though. But it was a different time. So anyway, so I got to college, and I remember when I got to college, here was my story. All through high school, I was a really bad student. All through high school, my grades were bad. I never made an A. I remember my goal was like, I'm gonna make an A this time in something, and I would make A's in like PE because I could run fast and I could jump high and I was strong. I had those three things. I was a good athlete, like so many other black boys. And that was it. I never made an A in anything ever in my life, in not one single class. And I remember being so lost in school. Those white women, they didn't understand me. I didn't understand them. They probably wanted me in special ed and to put me on medication and stuff I am a little weird. I probably do have a little bit of undiagnosed ADHD, but I consider it to be my superpower. I think that that's what makes Boyce Watkins into who he is, whatever that is. And I remember school was just a terrible, really bad experience. And a lot of you have sons and daughters that are going through the same thing. A lot of you have kids that are feeling that. In fact, we have that's why we bring educators to the All Black National Convention to kind of help you work through some of that. My daughter is one of those people. She actually works with kids, particularly in special ed and stuff like that. I'll bring her by so you guys can meet her. I think it's time, and she's super smart. She went to Columbia University, and I love her, and I think she's somebody that might be able to add value to what you're dealing with your children. So, long story short, I went to college. And I didn't have a fallback option. I had no money in my pocket. Black Achievers, God bless them, gave me my only little scholarship. It was like $500. And that was enough to just get me on the University of Kentucky campus. And I'm so grateful to Black Achievers in Louisville, Kentucky, that my wife and I went back to their banquet and we made a $20,000 donation about a year ago because I said I owe you everything. I without you, I would have been I don't know what would have happened, right? So I got to college and I had no money in my pocket, so I had to figure out how to make enough money to have a place to live, and I didn't have time for silly stuff, right? And I remember real thinking like, okay, what's my next move? What am I gonna do? You get in survival mode, so you're trying to figure out what you're gonna. And just like when I told you about the lady, about the old white lady that was trying to sleep with me for money, and I actually kind of thought about it because I was that broke, but then I kind of started vomiting in my mouth and realized how disgusting that would be, and I just couldn't do it. But really, that was where I was. That's like when you talk about hitting a low, and I'm saying anybody who's ever been broke probably has been through a moment where you thought, hey, you know what? I could sell all this lusciousness and get me an extra $50 $2, and that'll make sure I can at least go to McDonald's a couple of times and not starve to death this week. A lot of us have been there. If you haven't been there, then you haven't really lived. So anyway, I was in college and I just didn't have time to mess around, and my friend, so when I was figuring out my next move, I said, okay, I think this education thing could be my next move. I think this is the thing that can help me to provide for my daughter, because I had child support, and it can help me pay the bills, right? So I poured all my energy into education. I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to succeed as a college student. And I remember I didn't really know how to study. That was my problem. So I remember like reading books. Like that was when I started to become a little more conscious about life. That's when I learned about things like positive thinking, because that helped me overcome the depression I felt as a kid from feeling kind of abandoned and unloved. Well, I learned positive thinking as a way to kind of fight against that. Also, that was when I learned that most answers to most questions are somewhere in somebody's damn book. So I said, okay, since I don't really have all the role models I need in my life that can help me get where I want to get to, I'm going to go read books and find stuff, find information. So for example, when I wanted to understand women and sex, I read this book called How to Make Love to a Woman. And then I read another book when I was 30 called What Women Want Men to Know, because I was like, I like women. Women are cool. Let me understand. Let me study this stuff and see what's going on, because y'all are hard to understand. And then I also remember reading books about studying and how to do well in college. And the thing was, though, as I read those books about how to do well in college, I also leaned on what I knew. And what I knew was I knew two things that really helped me. One, I knew hard work, because my father always taught me that every man's got to work hard for what he wants. And I would go to work at these minimum wage jobs and make, $3 or $4 an hour and bust my butt for 10 straight hours and be grateful for it. And then also, I understood from sports very basic values about success and winning. I understood that to be a great athlete, you had to practice consistently. You had to prepare in advance, right? You couldn't wait to the last minute. You couldn't be lazy and think you're going to win the championship. So that's how I thought about my academics. And so I approached academics that way. And what I didn't realize was that I was actually studying harder than all my classmates. I thought I didn't belong in college. I thought that because I didn't fit the look, I didn't know how to, I dressed like a student. I didn't have the little tiny glasses with the little backpack. I felt awkward, right? But I just went in there just kind of brute force and just said, okay, I'm going to fake it till I make it. And for about 3 years, I really felt like I was faking it. I didn't really think I was that smart. I thought I was pretending, right? And so what happened was I ended up just blowing away everybody else. Like, I had the highest grade point average of all the black students on campus. And I remember being utterly fascinated by just how unproductive so many of my friends were, how lazy they were when it came to school, when it came to studying, how spoiled they were, how weak they were. They were very weak. And that's the thing. You get parents, we always think we're protecting our kids by coddling the hell out of them. And then they're just so weak. They can't weather the storm. One little wind blows by, they fall over like a little leaf. They have no resilience, no commitment, no dedication. And they get that little 2.2 grade point average where they were studying 1 hour a week and then whine the entire time. And I didn't understand that. And so one of the things I really felt was, I said, I think that there's something happening here where we're just not really hungry in this area the way I think we could be and should be. And there are other areas where we're very competitive. We're very competitive when it comes to sports. You got to be a great black basketball player. You got to be really, really good. We're really competitive maybe when it comes to dance. We're really competitive when it comes to even dressing sharp. When they show like sharp dressed black men, they go to the nth degree and they spend the money getting the beard perfectly shaved. And because for some reason everybody thinks a beard makes you into a man, which is like weird, because a beard doesn't do anything except put hair on your face. And just there's so many things that we're really, really into. And there are things that we're not into, right? And typically those things related to academics and whatever, those are not the things that are typically at the top of our priority list. Not everybody, but for a lot of us. And so one of the things I did when I got on the faculty of Syracuse, I see someone says, "How do you buy stock?" Go to blackwealthmasterplan.com. There's a free training on our $5 a day stock market investing plan. You can go to blackwealthmasterplan.com, or you can go to drboycestocks.com, drboycestocks.com. That's where I give you the stocks that I pick and everything else. So feel free to go there if that's what you're looking for. Anyway, let's go back into this. So we're talking about in terms of investing, where you invest your money, where you invest your time, where you invest your energy. And so the first book I wrote when I was at Syracuse was a book called Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About College. And I put everything in there that I learned as a professor about how to do well in school, right? So one of the things that's interesting to me, though, is that despite the fact that there are people like me who've written books that literally explain every single thing that you need to know to do well in college, there are so many people that will still go to that next level and really will just feel like they're just this uninformed Black person. You know, like they'll assume that because you're first generation, that you just don't know what's going on, that you're a deer in headlights, that you're completely lost, that there's no hope for you. And the best thing you can do is hope to just survive and get by. And I just beg to differ with that. That's my point. I beg to differ with that because the resources are out there. The resources are out there. The resources are in your phone. You can open up your phone and learn everything you need to know about how to do almost anything in this world if you are determined to find it. And so ultimately, what I would say to you is that this whole stream of consciousness in terms of investing, the investment of time, the investment of money, I think it goes to the core of some issues that we deal with culturally that we might want to confront instead of continuing to do what we've been doing before, right? So, for example, there's no excuse that these companies that help kids prepare for the SAT and the ACT don't have just as many Black kids as they have Indian, Asian, and white kids. When Asian kids show up and they've got the perfect test scores and they got the perfect GPAs, I think that we can get mad about that, or we can simply say, okay, maybe there's another notch we can go to. Maybe there's another level we can go to because we already have excellence in so many other areas. I really think academic excellence should be a part of that. Now, with that said, this is going to spin us back into the whole conversation about debt. And the reason I brought up the whole educational piece is because the debt crisis is actually hitting educated Black people as much as it's hitting uneducated Black people. And I'm going to explain that to you in 1 second. Let me just remind you guys of something really quickly. Some of you were looking to join the real estate program, something called Dr. Boyce Real Estate, where literally this week we're bringing in a special guest named Shalea Camila, who is a noted real estate expert who can answer a lot of your questions if you're looking to either invest in real estate or if you're looking to buy real estate, etc. She kind of knows everything. She was a speaker at the All Black National Convention. She's very good. And I know that Micah has sent out an offer where you could actually join the program for $1 the first month. Well, here, because you're in this class, I got something better. You can actually join for $0 the first month. So if you want to just try it out, bring your friends and family, just hit that link right there. And because you're here, I've extended that offer to you. So feel free to take a look at that. It's also at drboycerealestate.com. That's drboycerealestate.com. And also the Get Money Fest in Philadelphia is May 18th. And that URL is getmoneyfest.com. But what I'll do is I'll actually share the link with you guys really quick if you want to come to Philadelphia. And we're going to have a lot of panels and speakers and all kinds of stuff. So it's not my event. It's Jay Ortiz. He's the organizer. He's a rapper out of Philadelphia, and I love it when rappers want to be smart. So I told him I would support him 100%, just like all the other rappers, the smart rappers that I know. I'm friends with a lot of smart rappers, and I'm enemies with a lot of dumb rappers. The ones that are destroying the community, those are not my friends. But the ones that want to do better, those are ones I respect. All right. So anyway, let's break down what's going on with consumer debt, and then I'm going to explain to you why consumer debt is a type of financial slavery and why financial consciousness, which is what we cover every single day in this class at 10 a.m., is really important in terms of understanding what debt does for you. All right. So here's the deal with consumer debt. First of all, consumer debt, pretty much any debt that is on the back of a consumer or on the back of a family in America, consumer debt's at an all-time high. Right now, consumer debt is about $17.1 trillion. 70% of that debt is mortgages. I don't think mortgages are automatically always bad debt. I think mortgages are better. Now, someone says, where's the link? Oh, you know what? I didn't. Sorry about that. I apologize. I ran off and there we go. There's the link for the Philly event. And let me share the link for the real estate course. Right, so sorry about that, guys. I apologize. I didn't do everyone when I shared the link. There we go. All right, so there we go. Now let me know if you can see it. There it is. Okay, so 70% of all the consumer debt is mortgage debt. That's about $12.25 trillion. This is as of 2023. 1.1 trillion is credit card debt. That's also a record high. So mortgage debt is at a record high. Credit card debt is at a record high. It has never been higher than it is right now. A lot of this has to do with inflation. Auto loan debt is about 1.6 trillion. That is also at an all-time high. So people owe more on their cars than they've ever owed in any other area before. Student loan debt is 1.6 trillion. That's also a record high. And another area they included here on this list is HELOCs, like home equity loans. So people are borrowing against their home equity, mainly to maintain this high levels of consumer spending that is pretty much driving the economy and keeping the economy alive. So all this debt adds up to about 17 trillion. The average American household has about $104,000 worth of debt. To be precise, it's exactly $104,215 in total debt for most households. That's a lot of debt. And here's the thing about debt that's really interesting is that debt can either liberate you or debt can enslave you. Debt can either be something that really enhances your life and makes it better, or debt can be something that just makes you regret the day that you were born. And let me explain why. So the way debt can be liberating is if you use the debt in a way that actually helps you make more money. Most multi-billionaires and millionaires and people that run big businesses, they started their businesses off with debt. They went and borrowed some money. They went and borrowed, say, $5 million, and they turned the 5 million into 20 million, and they got to keep 15 after they paid back the 5 million plus interest. Whatever, maybe it's 12, 13, 14 million, whatever the number is, right? So debt can be a beautiful thing because debt can give you access to a productive asset that allows you to make more money. For example, a lot of you that are in the Prime program, you've used HELOCs to go and get access to capital or debt, and you have taken that money from the HELOC, maybe $100,000, scaled it up with a little bit more leverage, went in and bought, say, I don't know, a few hundred shares of a company, and you're making maybe $2,000 or $3,000 a week on selling the options for that stock, just like we cover in class. So that is a scenario, in my view, where debt isn't such a terrible thing, assuming that you're taking some of that income and plowing it back into repaying the debt. So if you're buying property and you're paying down the debt on the property, that's a good thing. If you're borrowing money for a business and you're able to make the business successful, I think that's a good thing. If you're even using debt to buy stock and sell the options on the stock to generate an income source for yourself, I think that's okay. But the problem is when you get into these areas of consumer debt, like the credit cards, most credit card debt does nothing for you at all. Most credit card debt does nothing for you at all. Most credit card debt does nothing for you at all. If you think about your finances like a human body, credit card debt is like a bunch of fat, right? Again, business debt might be like a bunch of muscle. If you have muscle, then you could be a better athlete. But with fat, you're usually not going to be a better athlete unless maybe you're a sumo wrestler or something. So having credit card debt is fat. Auto loan debt is fat. And for a lot of people, even student loan debt is fat, not because student loans are always bad, but because student loan debt has gotten so high. It's gotten so high that it's gotten to the point where it is very toxic, right? So ultimately, if you're not careful, that student loan debt or that credit card debt or whatever type of debt can be the thing that not only slows you down financially and keeps you from growing, but it can also be the key to your slavery. Like there are people that are enslaved when they when they actually go into so much debt that they can't quit their job. If you watch the movie, there was a movie called Wonka. Go see the movie Wonka. Wonka is a great movie. I took my daughter to see it, and in the movie Wonka, there's a point where Willy Wonka, it's the origin story of Willy Wonka. I assume y'all know I hope y'all know the story of Willy Wonka. Do y'all know Willy Wonka, right? I don't have to explain that. Okay, so the origin story of Willy Wonka before he builds his great chocolate factory and everything when he's young and he's a young guy young hustler on the move, he's trying to figure out how to make his next move. And there's a point in the movie where the a person tricks him into debt, and they put him so deep in debt that he then says, well, I can't afford to pay that. So then what they do is they force him to work in the laundry room of some hotel, and he can't go out and build his chocolate factory. He can't go pursue his dream of building the greatest chocolate factory in the world because he has to do laundry all day to repay this debt. And they said, if you keep, well, you can pay it off. It's just going to take you about 30 years to do that. Well, that really happens to millions of people. Millions of people end up in the same position as Willy Wonka because you've got this amazing dream, this fantasy, this vision that God gave you, and God said, "Go fulfill the vision." And you can't fulfill the vision because you got to go and do laundry in the basement every day for the next 30 years or do some other type of work that is pretty much meaningless to you, and the work that you would not be doing if you were not getting paid to do it. And that's what debt does. And that's why consumer debt is very powerful for those that are driving the economy. If they can get you into debt, it's like getting you pregnant and locking you down. They get you financially pregnant with all this debt, and then you can't make any moves. You're pretty much stuck pretty much where you are. You have to come back to work. After the pandemic, there were a lot of billionaires and CEOs that were very concerned about the fact that the American labor force had declined. The labor force participation rate had dropped because people just became financially conscious and they said, I don't really think I want to spend all my hours of this on this earth at a job. I'd rather do other things like sleep in or spend time with my kids or go to the movies or go to the gym or just be happy. And so they had to figure out how to get people to come back to work. So a lot of them were lobbying the government to reignite student loan payments so that people would be forced to come back to work. They were like, we need them to have something that they have to pay, so they have to come into us to get it done for them. We need them to need us. They need our income. So debt is definitely a type of slavery. I mentioned this yesterday that half of all Black college graduates default on their student loans. So having a lot of education doesn't escape you from the debt dilemma if you're not financially conscious. And also, even among the half that don't default on their student loans, a lot of them are paying on their debt until they're 50 or 60 years old. And the thing about debt is that debt moves in the exact opposite of closing the racial wealth gap. So when you talk about closing the racial wealth gap, you don't close the gap with debt, you're increasing the gap with debt. So the fact that we have so many of our best and brightest saddled with the absolute most debt that they can possibly get in hopes that they're going to find some job that will repay them enough to cover that debt is really flawed thinking. It does not work. So with that said, I want to cover a few financial consciousness points. And actually, I'll answer a few questions. So if you have a question, put it in the Q&A section. And if you're not inside the Zoom, I won't see your question. But if you want to join us in the Zoom, all you got to do is text the word morning to 87948. This is our daily financial consciousness training from the Black Business School. It's 100% free to anybody that wants to join. You don't have to pay money. You just have to pay attention. So just text the word morning to the phone number 87948, and I will invite you. And if you're not on that text list, make sure you get on the text list. Text morning to 87948. All right, so let me give you a few quick reasons why we overspend, and then I'm going to link this back to why financial consciousness is important. I need you to give me a quick yes as a confirmation. Is it clear to you why being financially conscious is critical in this economy? Give me a yes if you understand this. Like, give me a yes if you're seeing this. I want to make this clear because some people, no, I don't think you probably have never had a class on financial consciousness. You've never had a professor say, I'm going to teach financial consciousness. Usually they'll say, I'll teach taxation or I'll teach investing or I'll teach, about credit cards or real estate. You've never heard a person say, I'm going to teach financial consciousness. And this was something that didn't come to my mind. God didn't give me that vision until I literally was 20 years past my PhD. And I knew a lot, I knew a lot 5 years before my PhD. I was teaching college students in 1993. So it took a lot of processing for me to look at Black culture over many, many years, many decades to understand, like, I get what's going on. It's our culture, it's our habits, it's our consciousness that's kicking us in the butt. If they can get you to dumb yourself down and become unconscious, then they can use you like a slave. It can literally become like a zombie virus that takes over your brain. In fact, I remember reading where they said that consuming lots of media and television reduces the strength of your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that allows you to engage in strategic thinking and delayed gratification. So literally, But when you're sitting there watching TV all day and consuming media, it's literally frying your brain. It's literally dumbing you down. That's what it's doing. And then when you look at the studies, well, what do you find? You find that Black people watch more television than anybody else. Black people consume more social media entertainment than anybody else. Do you think that there's a connection between the two? Do you think that those two things are connected? And do you think that maybe that's kind of done on purpose? So anyway, so here are some reasons why people overspend their money. One is a lack of a budget. When you don't have a budget, that tends to cause your money to fly out your pocket. That is related to a lack of consciousness because what happens is that when you have a budget, you're conscious of every nickel that you spend. You're documenting that, you're writing it down, right? But when you don't have a budget, you're not conscious. And when you're not conscious, it kind of goes away. Like, have you ever sat down and done something with somebody? Maybe, I don't know, maybe you went to go see that person that you were really attracted to, and y'all had some hot, sweaty, you know what, in the bedroom, and then you look at you wake up and you look at your watching like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's 8 o'clock, right? The time just flew by. Or remember that song, Secret Lovers? And it said something about we wake up and we notice the time. Remember that? Yeah. We both get nervous cause it's way after 9, right? So here's what I think about. This tells you how weird I am. When I think about that song Secret Lovers and how they woke up and they got nervous because it was way after 9 and they just noticed the time, that made me think about another study that I read that basically said that when your brain is injected with dopamine or you're doing something fun like having sex or hanging out or using drugs, you lose track of time and space. Like time just you just become unconscious. You become unconscious of time. And in fact, an extreme example was I saw this. There was a story about this guy who was like this regular middle class dude who happened. He dabbled with crack or for some reason. I don't know why people mess with drugs, but he smoked a little bit of crack every now and then. And one day he decides to go out and smoke some crack. And and when he did that, he literally lost track of time. Like the whatever the crack did to his brain caused him to forget about time. And he said that he was literally just smoking away and 3 days went by. He didn't even realize that 3 days went by. So when he finally sobered up and went home, he said his house was empty, his wife was gone, the kids were gone, everything, his whole life was gone. Right. And that to me makes me think about what also happens when it comes to economic consciousness. I believe that when you're not conscious of your money or you're just sort of living life and just spending a little bit here and a little bit there, and you lose that consciousness, your money is just going to kind of fly out the window and you're not going to know where your money went. So one way to counter that might be to have a budget and kind of document things. And not only have a budget for money, but I actually have time budgets for time. I have time budgets. When I get on the phone, I think I live my life in 20-minute blocks, 20-minute increments. So if I do something, I'll look at my clock, my watch, and I'll say, okay, it's 8:50, it's 8:44. I'm going to stop doing this at 9 o'clock. Or if I say, gosh, I really don't want to work out, I don't feel like it, I'll say, okay, boys, we're going to start at 9:20 and we're going to work out until 9:40, really, really hard. Right. And then if you feel like continuing, you can. If you don't, then that's okay. That's the negotiation that I have with myself because sometimes you don't feel like doing it. Right. But what also happens is that all the barriers I had in my head where I'm like, oh, I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. That goes out the window because then I realized that this thing that I was procrastinating on because I didn't think I had time to do it literally only took me 8 minutes to do. Right. Has anybody ever gone through that where literally you'll spend a year procrastinating on something and then you do it and it literally takes you like 15 minutes? And you're like, wow, I can't believe I wasted a whole year procrastinating on something that was going to take 15 minutes. So I don't just budget money. I budget time. I budget the stuff that's more important than money. Time is far more important than money. I know my time. I'll pay money to save time. Seriously. So ultimately, a lack of a budget plays a big part in people overspending or going deep in debt. The second piece is, this also relates to consciousness, is impulse buying. Impulse buying is where they get you to get emotionally stimulated, emotionally charged, or whatever, and then they get you to buy based on your impulse. And a lot of this is linked to the inability to to really have the discipline or the consciousness to say, okay, I'm not going to just make this move based on my emotion. I'm going to sit back and strategically think about this. So one way to counter impulse decisions would be to force yourself to have a day or two to think about it before you do it. Imagine this. Think about this. Imagine if they had a law. And it's not, again, it's not just money. Think about stuff like sleeping with the wrong person and then having a baby with an absolute terrible human being. Imagine if there was a law that said every time you want to have sex with somebody, you got to have a 2 day cooling off period where you got to sit back and think about whether or not this is the person that you want to be with. Can you imagine like how many fewer unwanted pregnancies we would have, right? How much less drama there would be in the world if people were forced to think about it, even 24 hours, even 24 hours. Anytime you want to sleep with somebody, you got to fill out a form and put in an application and let I know I wouldn't want the government really regulating this. This is more like a thought experiment. But really, you have to fill out a form and say, I met this girl. She's really nice. I think she's great. I think I'm going to sleep with her. So I'd like to, and we're going to meet tomorrow at 9 o'clock and make it happen. Well, I think a lot of people would probably make a different decision, right? And a lot because a lot of times you make decisions based on impulse, and there are people that encourage that, right? There are people that encourage that kind of thing. And someone says it's called Veronica says it's called marriage. Yeah, it is. It is. And marriage is ideal, but I'm not here to judge, right? Some people don't feel that marriage works for them, and I think that's okay too. I don't think marriage really works for everybody. I think if in fact, as a married person, I will say if you're not ready to sacrifice and humble yourself and submit to another person and submit to something greater than yourself, marriage isn't for you. If you come in saying, well, I'm not going to submit to nothing, I'm not going to settle. No, marriage is all about settling and submitting. I settled for my wife because she's amazing, and I submit to my marriage and I submit to my wife all the time. Why the hell you think I got up at 4:30 this morning to drive across town? I wanted to sleep in. I didn't want to get up at 4:30 in the morning. I was submitting to the fact that I want my wife to be safe. I want to be with her when she's doing these things. I don't want to abandon her, right? So I think that it requires that kind of perspective. And so I think if you're not ready for that, maybe marriage isn't for you because all you're gonna do is get married and then get divorced and waste all your money and waste all your friends' time and all that stuff. So if you ain't gonna do it right, don't do it. That's what I would say. Whichever path you pick, do it right. All right, so let's keep going here. So we talked about impulse buying, a lack of a budget. Third is social pressure. Peer pressure is big in terms of buying things. A lot of people feel pressure to keep up with the Joneses, or they want to just, or maybe black people that just want to be like white folks, or also poor people imitating rich people. That's one of the reasons why luxury items get sold is because poor people buy them thinking that if I imitate a rich person, then the world is going to see me in a different light. They're going to see me as a successful person. And what's funny is that if you go and you hang out with billionaires where money just isn't a thing anymore for them, at least not, I mean, maybe in a big picture sense, like I'm going to go buy this building or buy this property, but they're not thinking like I'm going to just impress you with my Gucci belt or whatever. Like a lot of billionaires dress like bums. Like about they might drive a regular little car and you go to their office and it's just this tiny little office. And I think that what kind of happens maybe is that when they get that much money, they don't feel the need to impress you with how much money they have. In fact, sometimes I believe if you have a lot of money, sometimes you don't even want people to know how much money you have because when you have a lot of money, people treat you differently. I've never wanted to brag to people about the money I have. People know I probably have something because I understand money pretty well, but really I don't like for people to know that I have a lot of money because people start asking you for it and they start trying to steal it from you and they people will scam you for it and people will sue you for no reason and all these other things. So really, no, I'm not leading money first, right? I'm going to lead voice first, whatever that looks like. And I married a woman who didn't care much about money. Because she had money and it wasn't, but I could tell very quickly if a woman was interested in the money that I had. And that wasn't a bad thing. It didn't make her a bad person because the books I've read tell me that women are naturally attracted to men that have resources. So I understood that. But at the same time, I also understand what comes with that. I understand what it means to take on another dependent. And sometimes you don't want that, right? So ultimately, I think it's a matter of deciding what really works best for you. But really that social pressure aspect, circling back to that, that really speaks to also another consciousness concept, which might relate to just general self-esteem. People that have high self-esteem are not as subjected to social pressure as people that have low self-esteem. And for Black people, low self-esteem is a big problem that we have because from the time that we're born, we're really kind of raised to believe that you're nobody until white people recognize you. You know what I mean? Like literally, if you are not seen by white people, if white people have not labeled you in some way, you're kind of nobody. You're just a Negro. That in the minds of a lot of our people, like well, how do they label you? Well, they might label you with degrees. So you go spend $200,000 to get a degree from a white school, and then you come back and say, "Look at me, I made it. Look at how far I've come." And I might look at you and be like, "But you didn't come nowhere. You still live in the same neighborhood. I don't like how far did you go? Like you didn't go very far." But oh, I get it. You have a new label. Like, oh, look at me. I am a college graduate from the University of Texas. Great. I think that's wonderful. But I see that more so as a reflection of who you are, not something that defines who you are. Do you understand? There's a difference. You're already a great person even before they realize you were a great person and acknowledged you. Or I'm an Oscar winner, I'm a Grammy winner. I have this important job working for this important company with this important fancy title, and all that's fine. There's nothing wrong with your fancy title or your college degrees. The problem that is though that when you give other people the license and the right to validate you, you're giving them a tremendous amount of economic power because they become the governing body over a resource that you absolutely positively need. Let me go deep with economics for a minute. When you get to the point where you have a resource that you need, which might be something as simple as your self-esteem, and you are allowing someone else, especially your former oppressor, to control that resource, you are in danger. You are in danger. Why? Well, because the minute they want to control you, they can impose economic sanctions on you. They can punish you. They can take those things away from you. They can say, okay, because we don't like your behavior, we're going to take away your Heisman Trophy. We're going to take away your Grammy. We're going to take away your fancy title. We're going to take away that fancy job. We're going to take away that access to that degree that you think you're going to get. And then what occurs is that you start feeling bad. You start feeling like you really lost something. You feel like you're less than what you were before because you don't have all these labels and stickers attached to you. And remember, to get those labels, you paid a price for that. You paid the price in terms of time, money, maybe attention and energy. And that energy that you're putting into having that white man down the street label you could have been spent, could have been poured into the people that you actually care about, the people that care about you. You understand? I think really, and this is a really critical, subtle point that I really hope you'll at least hear me on, is that trillions of dollars in Black productivity and wealth is lost every year because Black people are spending so much time working for and seeking approval from white people. That's what we do. And then when we get that approval, we it is cultural. We encourage that. If you go on LinkedIn and someone says, "Hey, I'm now the vice president of Wackety Wax at Google or something," you'll see 10,000 people congratulating that person. Like, look at you. Look at how far you've come. Look at how great you are now. And I resent that, not because I resent the person who got the promotion. I resent it because I'm like, who the hell said that white man gets to decide if I get to be somebody or not? Who the hell said that he gets to decide if I'm important or if I'm not important? No, I was important before you even met me. It's just you're just late for the party. You're just now realizing how great I am. So I'm going to tell you like this. This is where I am. And this causes me some friction for sure with the world, but this is where I stand. I'm sorry. There's not a single person I can think of anywhere that I need to tell me that Dr. Boyce Watkins is good at what he does. I know I'm good at what I do because I put 30,000 hours of work into it. Because I know I'm super highly trained at it. I know how dedicated I am. I know I get up every single morning consistently every single day for well over a decade doing exactly what I'm doing with you right now, talking to you every single day. I know I'm good. So if one day, let's say one day the world changes and suddenly CNN and ABC or the White House suddenly say, "Oh, wow, we really want to really honor and acknowledge Dr. Boyce Watkins because what he's doing is so great." Um, my mindset will be like, thank you, I appreciate that. and I'm actually proud of you for finally realizing how amazing I actually am. I'm actually, I think that's cool because we've been killing it over here for a long time, and y'all were just too stupid to notice. So I'm really proud of you for congratulations. Like, don't congratulate me because I'm still the same. I'm still the same person. I'm congratulating you because intelligent black people were 20 years ahead of you, and I'm happy that you're finally catching up. That's how I see things. And I think that that's really important because what that does is that helps you understand the importance of you. That helps you understand the importance of what you're doing every day, the people that you're with every day. Why do you abandon the people that are around you to go and sit around a bunch of strangers looking for all this validation that don't mean a damn thing anyway? That's how I don't get. Why would I leave? Y'all love me, man. Like those of you that really have my back, I see you and I feel it. I love it. This is great. I get to be a weirdo and I get rewarded for that. Why would I leave this to go sit around a bunch of strangers just because they're white or just because they're on TV or because they have money or something and then feel awkward and terrible and then come back and say, "Well, I used to just be the little guy who used to just sit on the internet with the black business school, but now look at me. I'm the president of Yale University. Look at how far I've come." I didn't That was not a come up. That was not a come up. That was a demotion. That was a step down. That's a lesser version of who I am because then I have to be this whole other person. Walking on pins and needles, scared to offend white people. I don't want to make the people in Israel mad because anti-Semitism. I'm not trying to be that person, right? So this social pressure piece links back to self-esteem. I really think that as black people, those of us that really want to get it done, I really think that a great sense of self-pride in who you are goes a very long way. Did you know that they did a study where they were studying the most successful cultures in the world? I don't know what their measuring stick was. I got to go look the study up, but it was a lady at Yale. And I don't think it was scientific, but I liked it because the winning culture was actually Nigerian culture. And I'm part Nigerian, so I think that's kind of cool. And she said one of the things that the Nigerian people have is that they're proud of themselves. You can't tell a Nigerian, well, why don't you become a Mexican? They're not gonna want. They're like, why would I want to be a Mexican? I'm from the Igbo tribe. I don't want to be Mexican. Like that. So they have a lot of pride in who they are. And if you want to know what the other two criteria were, it was pride in who you are, like almost like a sense of self-importance. Like I'm holding down the fort of something really important. My job in this family is to protect the reputation of an entity that is more important than anything on earth I could ever be attached to. So I'm not going to abandon my post. And if you believe that your family name is the most important thing that you have going on in this world, you're not going to abandon your post so you can go defend the family name of the white guy down the street who offered you a job. Do you understand? I believe that generally speaking, that one thing that slave culture does to us is that it makes us feel embarrassed about who we are and say, well, I ain't nothing but a Negro and I just need somebody to see me. And then we go and we abandon our posts. And it shows everywhere. You go to some of our communities, they're in absolute shambles. And we're like out here in other places. And that's not the way things are supposed to be. So the other two criteria, actually, if you want to know what they were for defining the top cultures, was a sense of self-importance or pride. Also a commitment to education. We talked about that earlier. Getting your kids like don't you send your kids to school, make sure they're learning, get top of the class, that type of stuff. That's an attitude, man. That's a pride thing, right? And then the third piece was what was the third thing? It was a commitment to delayed gratification. A commitment to delayed gratification. All that is another version of what we talk about in financial consciousness training. That's thinking like an investor. All investing is delayed gratification. You do know that, right? That's all it is. It's saying I'm going to sacrifice now so I can have more later on. That's it. People and cultures and communities that have an extreme commitment to delayed gratification are 9 times out of 10 more successful than other cultures. People that don't have delayed gratification, that only believe in instant gratification, Well, they blow their whole load in the first, 10 minutes, and then they have a horrible life after that. They go to college and they party for 4 years and don't study, and then they have a miserable life for the next 40 years because they didn't prepare for the future. Or they just eat whatever they want, and then they end up dying early because the food they were eating was killing them the entire time. Or they just sleep with whatever pretty girl they happen to see, and then next thing you know, they're bogged down with child support and STDs for the rest of their life, right? So people that believe in instant gratification, they don't just struggle because of those choices, but also, unfortunately, when you kill your consciousness, you're living on the vibrational frequency of an animal. Animals live in the world of instant gratification. Animals are not strategic. Animals don't make long-term plans. Animals are not able to sacrifice for the future. That's not what they do. So what I believe, generally speaking, is that there is a consistent effort to reduce the consciousness of all Americans, especially Black people. I think this is one of the reasons why, even in hip hop music, which has tremendous capacity to elevate the consciousness of anybody, it promotes things that are very low vibrational behavior, very instant gratification based sorts of activities, because the goal is to keep your consciousness low. A consumer and a worker that doesn't have economic consciousness, for example, is very easy to control. You throw out some instant gratification. In fact, this is the last point that they made in the study about why people overspend and why they end up in debt. Easy credit access. When you have easy access to credit, uh you end up in debt. Like college students, they put in the credit card in front of the college student who is hungry for money, and they say, look, just sign this piece of paper and you can go to the mall and have the flyest clothes and spend money. And y'all, a lot of y'all remember that. Anybody go through that? Anybody else fall for that trap when you were 19 years old or 18? I know I did. And they do it with the student loans. They just like, just sign here and everything's fine. And that instant access takes advantage of anybody that doesn't have a high level of consciousness or commitment to delayed gratification. That's why Jerry Heller with NWA was able to put the contract in front of all the members of the group, Eazy-E, MC Ren, Dr. Dre, and Ice Cube, and said, here is $80,000. Here's a check for $80,000. Here's a nice car out front that you can have. All you got to do is sign this document and you can have it all right now. Every single person signed the document except for Ice Cube. He was the only one who did not sign because he was the only one who was strategic enough and had enough of a commitment to delayed gratification that he wasn't going to sell his entire future so that he could drive away in a nice car. And so really, and really, and I think that translates to so many other things. That's why 30 years later, the man's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And the reason we became friends is because we both align in that line of thinking. We were both actually heavily influenced by our fathers. And this is one of the reasons why I think Black fathers are extremely important. They took another few trillion dollars in your wealth when they took your fathers out of the house. Fathers matter. Just like mothers matter, fathers matter. You cannot talk me out of that. Okay. So anyway, what I want to do is put your question in the Q&A section. Let's do a quick Q&A. I'll answer a few of your questions. And one other thing I want to share with you, I mentioned this before, is with the summertime coming, we have our financial flashcards for kids and stuff like that that you can take a look at in our Black Wealth Mastery store. So I'm going to put this here. It's at drboycebooks.com, and there's the link directly. Also, if you use the code word book club, all one word, use the code word book club, you can get another 30% off everything in the store. We have apparel now in the store. So if you like Black Wealth, we have Black Wealth apparel. We have a whole love and money section that my wife and I run, where she's got workbooks on financial anxiety and all different kinds of things that relate to relationships and money. And there's a lot of good stuff there. Also, Dr. Claude Anderson's book, Powernomics, is there. So feel free to take a look at drboycebooks.com if you'd like to see what we have there. All right, so let me answer a few of your questions here. Okay. Now, if you could make your question like one sentence, that will help me make sure I can get through as many as possible. If it's too long, I'm gonna skim. I'll read the first sentence or so. Let's see here. Barbara says, I think the younger group has a different perspective of rappers. Yeah, I think that they do. There's a generational differential, and I think that the generation gap should not be seen as a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. Young people need to listen to elders. Elders need to listen to young people. I pay attention to what young people are doing all the time. I watch the culture. I'm not, I think it's hilarious when people think that because I'm 52 that I don't see the same thing that I would see on the internet if I was 22. I probably see more. I talk to our 20-year-old all the time, and I see things he doesn't see. I'll say, "Well, did you see where Kai Sanat was beefing with so and so?" And he'll be like, "Oh, I didn't know about that." Right? So ultimately, I think that paying attention to the world is really good. I think paying attention to the community and the culture is very valuable, and I think that young people. If you want to be stupid, I mean, don't listen to older people. But if you want to be smart, listen to older people and just know that that doesn't mean you can't still be who you want to be. And I think older people should listen to younger people too, because they can teach you how to be a little more creative and innovative in your thinking, and you have to respect that as well. But just because it's new, that does not make it better. Just because it's new, that doesn't make it better. In fact, I really believe that when you talk about solving the Black economic problem in America, the best way for us to move forward is we have to look back, and we got to look way back. We got to go back to when our uh, when our um, when our ancestors were in before integration, where they didn't have the same access that we had, but yet they owned 100 times more land than we had. They had a lot more businesses than we have. They had stronger communities than we have. The kids were better educated than they are now. That's where our solutions lie. I don't think that our solutions lie necessarily in all the progressive answers. Okay, so someone says, were you teaching at a PhD level in 1993? No, I wasn't. I was a graduate student, and I taught my first finance class at Indiana University in 1993. And then I taught mathematics at the University of Kentucky in 1995 and 96. And then I taught finance also at the Ohio State University when I was working on my doctorate. And then I taught finance at Syracuse University on the faculty for 13 years. I also taught in China for about for a summer, and taught in some other places as well. So that's my teaching background in case you want to know it. Let's see here. How's your daughter? Does she still do makeup? No, she does not, and she's doing very well. Thank you for asking. All right, let's see here. Kathy, what books did you read for help? Well, I told you to learn about whatever it was I wanted to understand, I would just kind of read a book about it or try to get information. So again, if when I wanted to understand women, I read that book called What Women Want Men to Know by Dr. Barbara DeAngelis, which I recommend for any man that really wants to understand women. I think you got to listen and learn and understand. And I think women should read books about men because from reading these books, I concluded that men and women are just very different. And that's why we don't understand each other, because I can't look at my wife and what she does and see it through the lens of a man, because our brains are different. They're literally different. I think men have more white matter and women have more gray matter, or it's reversed. And women, we're just different. So I think anything you want to learn about, it's in a book. I think I would get in the habit of consuming information. Let's see here. Someone says, I see the link to the real estate class, but it only sent me to my Black Business Program account. Show me the classes I paid for. Should I email your support team? Um, yeah, well, at Dr. Boyce Real Estate, Lisa, it should take you to the real estate class. If it doesn't, if it just takes you to the classes that you're enrolled in, then you may want to see if you're already enrolled, and it should be on the list of classes you're enrolled in. I've never seen that problem, but if you have any issues in the Black Business School, just email our support team. They're right there. Amandi's waiting to talk to you. The email is support@theblackbusinessschool.com. Support@theblackbusinessschool.com, and they can take good care of you. Let's see. How do I get out of deep credit card debt quickly and still save? Well, think of it like this. Think of it like um, if you think about your credit card debt like a bucket, and in order to get out of debt, you got to fill the bucket up with water, water meaning money. Then the more water you have, the faster you can fill the bucket up, right? There's no way to really eliminate a lot of debt quickly, typically without having resources to do that. So the fastest way to get out of debt is to maybe take a class, learn how to build a side hustle. And that side hustle, that little extra income might make a difference. I know in the Prime program, drboyceprime.com, we have students that were able to take some assets that weren't really performing, like some money from their home equity or 401k, and buy stock and sell options and do what we do in class and generate maybe an extra $500 to $1,000 a week. I talked to a single mom where we work together, and she's generating like an extra $4,000 a month. But this is after she had spent years saving money and didn't know what to do with that money she has saved. And so I showed her, again, not investing advice, but I showed her what I do. And there is money there that you can extract that way. If you're interested, just go to drboyceprime.com. It really does work. It's really, really effective. There are probably Prime members in here. So if you are a Prime member, say something in the chat so people will know what the experience is like. But anyway, another thought that comes to mind is if your credit score is really bad, sometimes you can just dispute things. Remember, you have rights as a debtor, and so if you dispute things that are on your credit report, they have a certain amount of time they have to get back to you and validate that debt. And if they don't get back to you in time, then they have to remove the debt. So that might be another way to at least make sure that the debts are valid when you make your move. Let's see here. Is there a contact number for your trademark lawyer? Ask Rainthon. Email support at theblackbusinessschool.com. I don't have her information here. And honestly, I cannot recommend her yet just because I have not worked with her long enough yet. So I did it again because I support Black business owners and stuff. I was really a little irritated and traumatized by by people assuming that I was running the Tulsa Real Estate Fund because Jay came on the channel and talked about what he was doing. I'm really hesitant to really recommend anybody like that just because I don't know exactly what people are doing in their businesses. I focus on my business and that's it. And so really I wish I could share that, but I don't want to share things until I'm sure of what I'm seeing. So that's really a shift in policy we had to pursue because people get things misconstrued, and I don't want that to happen. All right, so let's see. Barbara says, "Can you elaborate more on how to get out of credit card debt?" Okay, so we talked about that a second ago. Let's see, Derek, how much capital do I need to join the options trading program? There's no specific minimum. I mean, just learning stock options is beneficial wherever you are capital wise. However, if you're talking about generating significant income, I found that at least maybe 10,000 to jump in and participate, and then maybe using a little margin can get you like a little bit of income coming in that can maybe get you the feel of maybe what it would feel like to own a multifamily property. Like I think that this approach is better than owning multifamily property. Take it from somebody. So I scratch that. I don't own multifamily property, so I want to be clear on that. I own two properties, and we're selling our properties, and we're just basically going to replace that with selling stock options instead because the ROI is higher. There's no work required. It's much more liquid. And those are really three things that are driving us to kind of make that shift. Regina, I messed up going into credit card debt to save my family. What's the best strategy? Okay, so we already talked about that, about getting out of credit card debt. Also, I think let me see, I believe the URL is drboycecredit.com. I did a whole training on credit and credit cards and how credit scores work and stuff like that. So if you want to take a look at that, feel free to go to, I think it's drboycecredit.com. Yeah, take a look at drboycecredit.com. If that does not work, email support at theblackbusinessschool.com and they can help you out in terms of finding out what resources we have in that area. But yeah, I think that with getting out of debt, I know Dave Ramsey talks about the snowball method, where he talks about paying the smallest debts first and then getting that momentum and using that to pay the higher debts. And so there are lots of different ways to kind of get out of debt. But generally speaking, I really think finding ways to make more money just is a great solution that works across the board. And I think that having an abundance mindset helps. So I really believe that really embracing entrepreneurship and investor culture, but doing it conservatively can go a long way. So what I mean by that is this, there are people out here that have, these $30,000 masterminds and stuff where they promise you the world. And I'm not a fan of any of that. I don't believe in going and spending a bunch of money to be a part of stuff, but I'll spend a little bit of money to kind of dip my toe in the water, especially on something that I believe is actually going to work. And also, there are groups you can join where you can at least get ideas on ways to make extra money. The hard part is that there's so much stuff out here that just does not work. And I think that leaves a lot of us jaded. For example, I don't believe in MLMs. I know some of you may be members of MLMs, and I don't want to offend you, but what I believe with MLMs what happens is that a lot of people that they put on stage, what happens is that they put two or three people on stage, and everybody at the conference aspires to be like the two or three people on stage, but 99% of the audience hasn't made any money yet. And so to me, if I am looking to join anything, an MLM or whatever, one of the first things I'm going to ask is the person that's bringing me in. I'm going to say, well, how much money are you making? And can you show me how much you're making? And if you can show me that you're making a lot of money and exactly how it's being done, I might consider that. I might consider making some limited investment to explore that. but the risk is that you're putting up a lot of times you're putting up a lot of money and a lot of time. And I just don't have time to waste on stuff like that, right? So one of the things that I like about the Prime program that makes it just me really excited about it is that I met the students at the Stock Options Summit in Los Angeles, and all of you were there. It was totally packed up. Sorry it sold out, but we're going to do another one in Chicago. And I just told them, I said, if you have a little bit of capital to invest, I can show you how to make money on Monday. Like that's like literally, and students have sent me. One student sent me screenshots of money he made on Monday, and it wasn't gambling. It wasn't like I made a bet and then the price went up. It was like, no, this is where money's actually there. You can extract income. People only think about investing in terms of putting money out in hopes that something goes up in price. That's speculation. But there's also the other side of investing where you sell risk instead of actually buying and embracing risk. And that is an income stream that a lot of people use. So there's money out there. I encourage you to explore it. If you don't have the capital base to do what you want, remember I told you the most important thing a person can have when it comes to money is not a college degree, it's a capital base. If you have a capital base, I would trade a capital base for a college degree any day of the week. Like, so if I had a choice between being a 25-year-old with 150,000 in the bank or being a 25-year-old with a college degree and no money in the bank, I take the 125,000, especially if that kid knows how to, or 150, whatever the number was. Especially if he knows what to do with that money. If you give a kid 150,000 in the bank and they know what to do with that money, just basic things like I can go sell stock options or whatever, that kid can make as much money as a medical doctor, literally without any college degrees or anything like that. So give your kids a capital base. Forget college degrees. I'm not saying that they're not important. I'm not saying don't do it. And when I say forget it, I don't mean to say forget it like don't do it. I'm saying forget it as in that's not the best solution. The best solution is a capital base. All right. So anyway, let me keep going. Let me answer some more of your questions here. Let's see. Travis says, can you sell cover calls to the strike price less than the current price? Yes, you absolutely can. I'm going to answer some of your questions. So if you log in to drboyceprime.com, I'm going to do a Q&A this afternoon. So you may want to log in and leave a question, and I'm going to answer a bunch of them this afternoon before my wife gets back. Calvin, what are effective steps to reclaim the resources in the African continent? I don't know. That's a big question because the Chinese have their teeth sank very deeply into Africa, and they formed a lot of partnerships there. There are people like Dr. Ken Harris, who's a very good friend of mine, who are forming delegations of business owners that are going to Africa and setting up trade lines in Africa. But I don't know if that can really compete with what the Chinese are doing. So that part is going to be tough. I think over time, though, young Africans are going to fight for their fair share. Their children are going to fight for their fair share. They're not going to let Chinese people just come in and take everything. I think there's going to be a reckoning on that. Let's see here. Veronica says, after weeks of rejects, we finally have a Robinhood account. Good for you. I'm very, very happy to hear that. I'm so sorry to hear about the rejection. Sheesh. Joni, will there be an estate planning class at the ABNC? No, there will be no classes at the ABNC. We will do an estate planning class in the Black Business School. We will have an estate planner at the ABNC, but the ABNC is a weekend long event. And it's panels and speakers and stuff like that. So there won't be time to actually have a complete class. But we will have something on legacy and wealth building as one of the panels. And by the way, if you want to come to the convention, it's October 25th through the 27th, allblacknationalconvention.com. Calvin says, appreciate you, Dr. Boyce. Well, thank you. I appreciate you too as well. Let's see. Dr. Vibe, what do you think is the near future in the electric car industry? The near future is not good. I think the long-term future, we got to eventually have electric cars, I think. But right now, everybody wants hybrids. And also, the electric vehicle industry, Elon Musk's dominance in that industry is starting to decline. And the Chinese are really making moves, and they're actually making moves that are so aggressive that they're being accused of dumping their products out there in order to take over market share, right? So I personally think that that's going to be interesting to watch. When it comes to solar panels and EVs, I think the Chinese just have a long-term strategy. They're very long-term delayed gratification thinkers. The challenge of competing with China economically is they think very long-term and they think as a group. And it's very hard to compete with a team like that. So over time, they're going to probably end up dominating the EV industry, I believe. Let's see here. Let's see. Someone that's it's a Prime membership, a monthly or annual. It's either one. If you go to drboyceprime.com, there's different options there. And also if you text the word money to 87948, there's a training called How to Make Money Without Working that you can receive. So just text the word money to 87948. Yvonne says, is the real estate meeting $1 or free, like you said today? It's free. You can do the first month for free. So the link was in there. I put the link in there earlier. If you want to join for the first month, it's free. After that, it's $89 a month, and it's a bunch of resources and private discussions with real estate experts that can enhance your real estate training. There's already a lot of free bonus material in there. Like there's like $1,000 worth of stuff already in there. But then also I have private sort of VIP sessions with real estate experts, and you'll be able to join those as well. And you can share the membership with your whole family. So feel free to go to drboycerealestate.com. Dr. Vibe, on a scale of 0 to 10, how optimistic are you about Black economics future for the next 50 years? Um, it depends on which Black people you're talking about. I don't think all Black people are in the same boat. I think that there's a segment of the Black community that's going to just sort of be stuck, and they're going to be part of the permanent underclass that Dr. Claude Anderson talks about. And I don't, in that, there's not much I can do about that just because if if you're listening to mainstream people and rappers and stuff like that in the public school system and all that, I don't know how to fix that. But I do believe that there is a segment, a large segment, a growing segment of intelligent Black people that are really making just dramatic economic moves that put us on on a scale of 0 to 10, they're on a 14. You remember that when we're training you to teach your kids about investing at the age of 7, other people aren't really doing that. Even Jewish people aren't really doing it like that. Not at that level, not formalizing it. Like, what I'm doing is simply taking Black excellence that we already have in the area of, say, sports and entertainment, and just saying, let's apply that to our economics also. This is nothing new. We're already performing at that level. We're already dominant, in certain areas. Let's just expand that into everything. All we're doing is we're doing a Michael Jordan. We're doing exactly what Michael Jordan did. Michael Jordan is a guy who said, I'm not just great at basketball, I want to be great at everything. And so Michael Jordan makes more money, probably 10 times more money now than he ever made as a basketball player. And as a basketball player, he was the highest paid player in the NBA. And I believe that if we were to talk to him now, I don't know Michael. I know Larry Miller, who is the former CEO of the Air Jordan brand, who was responsible for taking Michael Jordan's brand to the multi-billion-dollar level. Larry's a great guy. I've actually had him on this platform before. I'll try to bring him back in. But I would love to talk to Michael too. But I'd be willing to bet you that if we had Michael in here, he would probably say that his competitive energy that he used to be great at basketball was something that he wanted to apply to business also. He doesn't like being a loser, and so that's why I don't understand with young Black boys that are super competitive on the field, but then they become wimpy and intimidated, when it comes to things off the field. No, we should be dominating everything that we do. So this is because economics is a sport. Economics is a competition. And it's not just a sport, it's the most important sport that you'll ever participate in. It's the most important competition that we'll ever be in this world. So we got to be ready. Next, okay, Ranice says best stocks to buy this year. I mentioned some stocks this week. If you go to drboycestocks.com, that's what Dr. Boyce is buying. I list stocks every single week that I find. I'm trying to think of the stock I mentioned yesterday. If somebody remembers the stock I mentioned yesterday, put it in the chat because I buy them. I think it was Sprout. I think the ticker symbol was SPT. I think Sprout was the one I mentioned yesterday. Rue Parker says, I recently started investing in the markets. Thanks so much for all your teachings. I have challenges keeping track of my stocks and movements. How do you keep track of your investments? Well, most of the apps will lay out your portfolio for you in terms of telling you what you're invested in, what the gain was that day. They have a pretty good tracking system kind of already inside the app. I don't have a spreadsheet. I don't use a spreadsheet. I just use the apps because the apps will tell you whatever you need to know usually. E-Trade is really good. Fidelity is great. Schwab is great. Even Robinhood keeps track of stuff for you. Let's see. So that's a good point. So thank you, Rue, for that suggestion. Let me think about some other ways to keep track of things. I know that there are students, some of you do have spreadsheets. I have a spreadsheet for the income I make from my stock options. But outside of that, for long-term investments, I just literally buy stuff and pile it in there and just kind of do. I try, to become wealthy, you imitate wealthy people. What wealthy people do is they're hoarders. They hoard various assets, financial assets, and other assets, and then over time, those assets go up in value, and that's how they become rich. Okay, a couple more questions, then we're gonna bounce out of here. Just saw Jeff Bezos offering landlord status for 100,000 fractions of real estate. What are your thoughts? Oh, $100 fractions of real estate. Really? Jeff Bezos. Oh, I didn't know that, Patricia. I'm gonna look that up. I did. That's very interesting. Have you been cloned on TikTok? Yes, I have. Probably about 80 times. So, my TikTok has about 35,000 followers. So if you see me request or if you see me on TikTok, first of all, I don't slide in nobody's DM except my wife's. And also I don't really send out a lot of friend requests. So if you get one from me, that is not me. But if you want to follow me on TikTok, I think it's like Dr. Boyce Watkins. And if you go to Instagram, it's Dr. Boyce Finance. So feel free to take a look. Are you planning to teach in Texas? No time soon, Randy. So I don't have any. We had the convention in Houston one year, but that was a while ago. Um, let's see. Are you going to the rally for reparations on June 15th? That's April. No, but I spoke at the last rally and I supported 100%. Yvette, as a senior of 75, I made huge mistakes and lost much money. How can I start from the bottom and leave a substantial legacy for my two girls? Well, I would look at things like your insurance. Also, remember that if you have your two girls and they're very young, the gift that they have is time. So you can plant small amounts of money and just in your estate plan, just have it set where they can't touch that money for say 20 years. If you give your money 20 years to grow, it grows like a weed, right? And especially if your estate plan or your insurance policy automatically makes your trust the beneficiary of all those resources, and you give it like a good 20 years, that money will grow into something pretty substantial. The reason people don't have a lot of money is because they don't let their money grow. Like think about it if you had bought Bitcoin in 2015 and just sat, it didn't touch it, it didn't mess with it. Let's say you just consistently bought $50 in Bitcoin every week for the last 8 years or 9 years, you'd have a ton of money, a ton of money. But what happens is that people they things happen and they need the money and so they sell, or they're worried that the price dropped a little bit, so they sell out because they're scared of the price dropping further. And all this picking at it, it's like when you have a scab. You know, your mama used to say, "Don't pick at it," because the more you pick at it, the longer it's going to take to heal. So when you get your portfolio, don't pick at it. Just do the $5 a day plan. That's blackwealthmasterplan.com. That's totally free. Blackwealthmasterplan.com. And literally don't pick at it. Just set it and forget it. Don't touch it. That ain't your money. That belongs to the kids and the grandkids. All right. So anyway, let me keep going here. Um, let's see here. So yeah, I'm cloned on all the platforms, basically. So if you see me and I'm sending you like solicitations to buy Bitcoin or something, please don't do that. That's not me. Are teenagers able to sell options? Yeah, but I think they need parental supervision. But I think it's a valuable skill. Oh my God. If you have a child that is mature enough and patient enough to sit down and believe you when you tell them how important this skill is, it will change their whole freaking life. It will change their whole life. I'm not I'm talking like this because I'm just thinking about even kids in my own family where kids are just if their brains are somewhere else, you can't explain like how important this is. So you try to tell them like, hey, you really don't. I know you're planning on trying to figure out which minimum wage job you're going to get and when you're going to graduate and what's going to happen after that. And I don't want to take that away from you. I don't want to take away your opportunity to experience the misery of going to work every day. Maybe that builds character or something. It didn't. I don't know what it did for me, but I guess that's what it did. But if your kid has a capital base that's like, let's say you invest for them when they're young and they have a capital base, let's say $100,000, they never have to work for anyone ever. I think the problem there though is what do you do if you don't work? If you take that away from people, see, work gives people a sense of purpose. That's the problem, right? Society tells you that your purpose is to get up and go to work for that corporation every day, and we create meaning in an otherwise meaningless activity for the most part, and we do that because we're bored. Like, what else would you do other than if you're sitting at home? What are you gonna do? Smoke weed and play video games and you know what I mean? Like, right? So you have to find a sense of purpose that goes beyond just like I'm getting up and going to do this meaningless job just so I can pay bills every day. And that because that's what most people do. Most people's time is spent paying bills and taking care of kids. That's it. And then resting in between. And so what do you do when that work piece is taken out, where there's a big void there? And that's where self-awareness comes into play and consciousness comes into play, because you got to fill that void with a purpose that's going to get you out of bed every morning. My, do you know, I'm going to share this personal thought and then we're going to be done. I'm sorry if I didn't get to answer every question, but we usually go 30, 45 minutes. We've gone an hour and a half. But I'm going to tell you a personal story. I struggled with depression very badly in high school. It was really a really hard time for me. Self-esteem was not that high. Just a little bit of abuse. I'm not gonna lie, but I don't want to indict my parents because I love them and they were doing the best they could. And so I worked through that, right? I worked through that on my own. That was one of the benefits of being kind of like a pseudo abandoned kid, is that you learn how to be independent. So I just learned if I don't do it, nobody will. So I started to learn about things like positive thinking and stuff like that to kind of help me to overcome that, right? And when I really focused on that, it really made a difference. So for the next 30 years, I was very happy, very positive, because I would consciously, this is consciousness. This is why I'm so committed to this concept of consciousness. I would consciously look for the brighter side. I would consciously look for hope and possibility in my life. I would consciously look for ways to motivate myself to keep trying harder, while at the same time, realizing like, hey, God is not through with me yet. I can do this, right? That was literally like I became my own little internal cheerleader. I would give myself little motivational speeches inside my head, because I had nobody else around me to do that. So that was really beneficial in terms of being a driving force. As I was dealing with the horrible challenges of trying to finish my PhD, which was absolutely the most traumatic type of experience. It was just terrible. It was so hard. Or racism, and then you throw in racism and being broke, and then just relationship issues, just whatever, right? But I fought through that, right? And it was fine. And I feel like, okay, I succeeded. I was happy with my life. And then when I got about 47 years old, I had another problem. And here was the problem I had this time. I wasn't I wasn't one of those, I wasn't like the men. Hold on, give me a second. It's my wife. Hold on. Hey babe, I'm in class. Come up to room 900. I'm in class right now. You're what? I'm in class right now. My students can hear you. So come up to room 900 in the Marriott. 900? Yes. Boys. I know that's great, baby, but they can hear you. They're listening to you. 255. That's great, babe. Are you able to hear me? They're listening to you right now. Come up to room 900. I love you. That is awesome. Bye. So she's excited because she PR'd. So there we go. All right. Can y'all still hear me? Okay. Let me know. Give me a guess if you can still hear me. Okay. So anyway, so here's what the experience was. So when I was 47, what happened was I remember I wasn't like, it was good in the sense like I wasn't one of those black men who's sort of like, I made all these mistakes and now I'm trying to make up for the mistakes I made. I didn't have a lot of margin of error. Like, I had the kind of parents where if I went to jail, they would just leave me in jail. And so I didn't do stupid stuff. I didn't waste my opportunities, and everything I wanted to accomplish educationally, I accomplished it. Everything I wanted to accomplish financially, I accomplished it. Everything I even married, I literally married the woman of my dreams. I married the woman that I considered, if you'd asked me years ago, who's the prettiest lady you've ever met, I would have said Alicia. So I was very happy with my life. But the problem was that I realized, I said, I don't have a reason to get out of bed anymore. Like I don't, like, what do you do? Like if you've accomplished what you want to accomplish and you have the money that you need to buy what you want, and you don't have to get up and like go to work every day. You have to find, so I was depressed for about 2 weeks. I would just lay in the bed and I would just watch Netflix. And I remember just telling Alicia, I was like, well, it doesn't really matter if I get out of bed or not, because nothing's really going to change. And I had to find a new sense of purpose, because my life had gotten almost like, I'm not gonna say too good, but it was like, okay, those basic things that had driven me for so long were no longer there. What do you do when you have that void? So I encourage you to be conscious of that, right? And I encourage you to really train your kids on that, because what can happen is that if you give a kid a lot of resources, like if you just determined to give them what you never had, and you give them all these resources and they're 25 years old with, $250,000 in assets, they can get into a lot of bad stuff. They like that's why you see the rich kids out here getting on drugs, taking their own lives, doing crazy stuff because they don't have a purpose, right? So find a purpose. Maybe their purpose is the elevation of the community. I think that's a beautiful purpose for a Black person to have, is to pour back into their own community, their own people. Maybe their purpose is, I'm going to raise excellent children. I'm going to homeschool my kids because I can afford to do that, right? And I'm going to make sure that these kids are really ready for the world. Just little things like that. Or maybe their purpose is building that business that's going to employ other people. Find your purpose, find your purpose, find your purpose, find your money, and then find your purpose. Money is a pathway to purpose. That job is probably not in alignment with the purpose that God meant for you to have. And I just want that for you. Okay. And I hope that helps. I hope this conversation was beneficial. And sorry about my wife's interruption. That's really a wake up call for me to go ahead and finish this conversation. So you all have a great day, and I will see you all tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you're on the text list. Text the word morning, MORNING, to 87948. If you want to get a reminder, text morning to 87948. I don't send reminders out every day, but I can send them out periodically. Also, if you want to join us for the Get Money Fest in Philadelphia, here is the link, or you can also try getmoneyfest.com, but here's the link right here. If you would like to come to Philly, and that is my wife knocking at the door. 1 second, babe. So that means I got to get out of here. And also, last but not least, if you'd like to get a copy of Powernomics or our flashcards for kids, then you can go to drboycebooks.com. All right, guys, have a good day.